In this video, I will show you how to create this JavaScript project, which is a BMI calculator. It takes two inputs, the height and the weight. If you press on calculate, it is going to return the BMI result. It is pretty straightforward. I will be explaining every line of code. So let's get into it. In my project folder, I will create three files: index.html, style.css, and a JavaScript file. Let's create a boilerplate inside HTML. I will change the title, link the style sheet, and inside the body, let's link the JavaScript file. Inside CSS, I will reset the margin and padding and set the box sizing to border box. And you can use whichever font you like. And the JavaScript file will be empty now. First, we will create the HTML, then we will style it, and finally, we will create the functionality. Let's go back into HTML and open this up on the browser. So first, I will create a container, and inside, at the top, we will have this H1 BMI Calculator, and right under this we will have the form. We can delete the action. So we will have two input sections, and I will put them inside a paragraph. Let's create a label. This one is going to be for the height in centimeters, and right under it I will create an input, and input type will be a number. ID, it is going to be height, and I'm going to copy and paste this for the weight in kilos, and let's change this to weight as well. And next I will create a button, calculate, and under this we will create this div, results. This is going to be the div that we are going to show the results inside. And one final div is going to be weight guide. And I'm just going to copy and paste this information. And we are done with the HTML part. We can style it now. First, I will select the body and set the minimum height to 100 VH, so the body element is going to cover the whole page. And now I can center the container using align items center and justify content center. And background color is going to be this nice orange color. I will select the container, set the width to 500 pixels and height to 700. I will make this a flex container as well. And I want everything inside to be stacked on top of each other. So I will change the flex direction to column instead of row. I will center everything. Center the text as well. Let's create some border radius. And put some gap between the H1 and the form. And the background color of this container is going to be white. Border is going to be this gray color. I'm copy and pasting the colors, so if you want to use the same colors, just pause the video and type down the same. And let's give it a box shadow as well. So 5 pixel towards to right and 5 pixel towards bottom, and 25 is for the spread. So if I increase this, it is going to spread even further. And let's have some padding inside. Let's increase the font size of the H1 and select the form, make it a flex container, change the flex direction, put some gap between the elements inside, and increase the general font size. Now I will select the paragraphs, and I want this text to be on top of these inputs. And if you look at inside these paragraphs, we have two elements inside, and just like we did with the others, I can turn this into a flex container and change the flex direction to column and align the text on the left, and that should do it. And let's also put some little gap between the text and the inputs. Next, let's select the inputs, add some border radius, some padding to make it bigger, and increase the font size. Let's give it a black border as well. And when you focus on this input, we are going to change the background color to this gray color. So focusing basically means clicking on it. So if I click on this input, as you can see, the background color changes. And let's select the button. I will give it 0.5 EM padding. Let's add some background color, a little border radius. Text color is going to be white. Font size 1.2. And let's increase the font weight as well. And when you hover over this button, the cursor will be pointer. And for the hover effect, I will create a transparent border with some transition. And when you hover over this button, the background color will be white. Border is going to be the same orange. Text color as well. And we will make it just a little bit bigger using transform scale. And finally, this weight guide, I will make it a flex container as well. Change the flex direction, align the text. And one final thing to do is to style the span. But as you can see, we don't have any spans inside this HTML right now. But if you take a look at this results div, this is where we are going to display the results. And the way we are going to display the results is we are going to append a span inside this div. So even though we don't have it right now, I will just quickly style it by giving it some padding and increasing the font size and font weight as well. And that is it with this styling. Now we can create the logic. So first of all, to be able to get the input information, I will get this form from the HTML and put it inside a variable. I will use query selector. And let's put the form inside. And to be able to add some text inside this results div, I will put it inside a variable as well. But this one has a ID, so I will put a hash at the beginning. I will add a event listener to this form. And event listener is a function that basically listens for an event. And it takes two arguments. The first one is going to be the event. In this case, it is a submit event. When you click on this button, you basically submit the information you put inside this inputs. And the second argument that this function takes is the function that is going to get executed when this event happens. So basically, when you click on the button and submit the informations, we are going to execute this function. And this function takes an argument as well, which is the event itself. So before we create any calculation logic, we need to use a function which is prevent default, because we are going to handle the logic of this form by using JavaScript. There is no server, and forms by default behavior, they expect to connect a server. So we are basically preventing that by using prevent default. And the next thing to do is to get these inputs, height and the weight. I will create a constant named height, and using query selector, I will get that inputs value. So there's a little problem with this, because query selector, even though this input is a number, it returns this as a string. So we basically need to turn this into an integer, and there is a function for this. Inside JavaScript, we can use parse int and wrap this around. and this will turn this into a integer, and I'm going to copy and paste this for the weight as well. So now that we have the information, we can create the logic using if statements. So the first thing that we're going to check is if the height is empty, but there is a shorter way to do this. I can use an exclamation mark, and this will check if it's empty or not, or the height is equal to or lower than 0, or if it's not a number at all. And to be able to check if it's a number or not, there is a function for that as well in JavaScript, which is called isNan. Nan stands for not a number, and it will check the height, if it's a number or not. And if any of these happens, so if it's empty, if it's equal to 0 or lower than 0, or if it's not a number at all, we will return this text inside results. Please provide a valid height. I will do the same for the weight as well. So let's create a else if statement, and I'm going to copy and paste this. Change this to weight, and let's copy and paste this as well. Change this to weight, and finally I will create a else statement, and if the user provides the right values, we are going to execute this logic inside in here. I will create a constant named BMI, and I will get the weight. I will divide it by height divided by 100. So we divide the height by 100 to convert it to meters from centimeters. And also we need to square this. And after that, inside the results div, using inner HTML and using backticks, as I mentioned earlier, we will put a span inside. Your BMI is, I will use a $sign and curly braces to put this BMI inside this text as a value, and that should do it. And let's see if everything is working fine. So the calculation logic works fine, but we have a little problem, which is this number is really long, and there's a way to make it shorter. So right after this calculation logic, I will use toFixed, and I will put a 2 inside this parentheses, and this basically defines the number of integers between the decimal point. If I hover over it, we can see it. Number of digits after the decimal point. If I do it again, as you can see, right after the decimal point, we have only 2 numbers, and it is fixed. Let's also provide some zeros to see if it gives an error. There you go. Let's leave it empty, and it gives an error again. And this is how we can create a BMI calculator using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next time.